Now the next type of objects that I'd like to talk about are the media objects. Alright, media objects control your page layout. In Microsoft Word, they will control your page layout, the way your section breaks work, whether they're next page, odd page, even page, that sort of thing. They'll control your margins, they'll control your headers and footers. In your online help, they'll control the window attributes, such as the size of the window, the position of it, your scrolling and non-scrolling regions, and so on. And for HTML, they will control your HTML template that is used at the topic level, and I'll be showing you that tomorrow. They may also include some additional files needed by those HTML templates. They also control your background color and your text colors. And by text color, that actually means your link color, a visited or unvisited link. Those colors are controlled inside of your media object. So let's go ahead and take a look at media objects now. Alright, if I go to the standards media folder, you see there's an awful lot of media objects listed here. There's one media object for each section in your document. Alright, let's open one up. Let's open up chapter section. Alright, so this is what a media object is. Very similar to going to a Word document and looking at the page layout options. So in your print tab, you have options for how to start your section. Odd page, even page, next page, new column, continuous, and so on. How do you want that section break to occur? You can also choose the number of columns that will display within that section. You can choose whether to have different first page, different odd and even headers and footers. And down here in the sub-tab is where you control the page properties themselves. So your margins, your paper size, your orientation of the paper, your page numbering scheme within that particular section, whether the numbering starts from the previous section or restarts at a certain number, and then which headers and footers you would like to display. We'll actually take a look at headers and footers tomorrow and how to create them. Now in your Help tab, they control your window attributes. Alright, so your window name, title, whether you'd like a macro to run when that particular topic is opened, your attributes for your window sizing, positioning, what buttons you would like to display, and the color for your scrolling and non-scrolling areas. And then in the Web tab, let's first go down to the bottom of the page. If you would like some metadata added to the HTML page, you could add it here. You can choose a background image, a background sound, which I do not recommend, and a background color if you'd like to, and your link colors within that section. So here we have our unvisited link color, visited color, and our active color. Now notice how a lot of these properties have been inherited. They're all appearing in blue and they're all non-modifiable. That is because, as a best practice, what we recommend is that you set up a media object that contains your global properties that would be common to every single section in your document, and then you base your section-specific media objects on that global media object. Now the global media object in this library is called the paper size template. The reason for that is because it's really forcing in a certain paper size. So let's go ahead and find that template here. Take a look at it. Alright. So our paper size template, this is our global media object that contains the properties that we want all of our sections to inherit. All right, so if you see a property here, then that means that it is inherited. Some of these settings are set to a property called don't inherit, which means that at the individual object level, you can decide what you want that property to be. No property is inherited at that point, and you can set the property at the object level. All right, so if you go through, you'll see that we've defined our global settings for our sections here. We're saying that every section in our documents will always publish with A4 and B portrait. All right, perhaps your settings or your global settings are for letter size, so you may want to change that if you're working with a brand new author at library. And page numbering, these are all set at don't inherit. Headers and footers, these are set at don't inherit so that we can decide at the individual media object level. All right, so that contains our global properties, and other media objects are based on that global property media object, okay, just to enforce some consistency across all of our sections. Now, if you take a look at the default media objects that come with every author at library, what you're actually seeing is a media object for every possible section in a document. All right, so we can actually take a look at these by section. So generally the first section in a document is the title page. So we have a media object for the title page called cover section. Now let's say that the next section in our document is the table of contents section. We've got a media object for that here called contents section. Then we've got, say, our next section is our chapters. So we've got a chapter section. Perhaps the next section in our document is an appendix. So we've got an appendix section. And last but not least, let's say that our last section is an index. All right. So you can actually kind of open each one of these media objects up and take a look at how the sections are going to be set up for your documents. This is specifically for your print output. All right, now cover section media object is associated with your title page object. Content section media object associated with table of contents object. These types of media objects here, chapter and appendix section, these are associated with your section starting topic templates. Those all important section starting topic templates that insert a section break and have a media object. And finally, we have our index section here. This is associated with an index object. All right. Now, in general, all of those special objects, if you can remember back to our special objects module yesterday, the title page, table of contents, table of figures, index, glossary, etc., those are all section starting objects. That is why they all are associated with a media object. So you will have a media object for each one of those special objects. And then you will also need media objects for each one of your section starting topics, okay? So that's why this folder has so many media objects inside of it, is because you really do have a lot of sections inside of your document. Now, let's say that your sections are always set up in the same way, where the print help and web tab is set up in the same manner for every single section in your document. Well, if you're one of the lucky people where that's the case, then you can reuse the same media object for everything, for all of your special objects and your section starting topic templates. But for those of us that like to customize the look of each one of our sections, we will need a media object for that section. So just some differences that I want to point out between these sections are things like number of columns. If you can remember back to a Word publication, let's see if I can open one up real quick. Go to the end. See how our index is set up as 2 columns here? That's because our media object was set up to insert 2 columns. So that would be an instance where you would want to have a special media object set up in that case. Or perhaps you have a section where page numbering always starts at 1. Wouldn't it always make sense if the first section inside of your document started at 1? Well, that's why the cover section or title page media object starts at 1. If we take a look at content section and we go to page numbering, you'll see that it also starts at 1, but the page number format is different. We have the small Roman numerals that we're using for the table of contents section. So we've got a difference here, which means we need a new media object set up for that section. All right, our chapters, page number format is 1, 2, 3, but we are continuing from the previous section. All right, so that's an example of why we need to have this media object set up. All right, so there's definitely some reasons why we need different media objects. It's because each section may be set up just a little bit differently from the last one.